That oversized carry-on you're forcing into the overhead bin, it just cost you your future flying privileges, and the flight attendant has already reported you to security. Every day, thousands of passengers unknowingly break the unwritten rules of air travel, creating silent fury among flight crews and fellow travelers alike. These invisible violations aren't just annoying, they can get you blacklisted, banned from airlines, or even removed from flights mid-journey. I'm exposing the secret code of conduct that seasoned travelers and flight crews know by heart, but nobody talks about. By the end, I'll reveal the single most despised passenger behavior that flight attendants immediately report to the captain, a seemingly innocent action that's gotten hundreds of people escorted off planes. The overhead bin territory war. That overhead bin space directly above your seat? It doesn't actually belong to you. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of air travel, leading to heated confrontations and delayed departures. Airlines operate on a first-come, first-served basis for overhead storage. The bins run continuously throughout the cabin, and you're entitled to use any available space, not just the section above your seat. However, this creates a critical problem. Early boarders often place their bags far from their seats, leaving later passengers without options. Place your bag in bins near your seat when possible, but never argue with someone who uses your space. Instead, find the nearest available bin and inform a flight attendant if you're forced to store your bag far from your seat. Cabin etiquette. If boarding with Group 3 or later, consider gate-checking your bag voluntarily. Flight attendants remember this courtesy and often reward helpful passengers with premium snacks or drinks once airborne. Speaking of snacks, there's another major violation happening during in-flight service that you might be committing without realizing: the headphone removal requirement. Flight attendants universally agree, keeping your headphones in during beverage and meal service is one of the most frustrating passenger behaviors they encounter daily. When you wear headphones during service, flight attendants must repeat themselves multiple times, significantly slowing down service for everyone else on board. On a full flight, this can add up to 30 minutes of unnecessary delay. What seasoned travelers know: the moment the service cart appears in your aisle, remove at least one earbud as a courtesy signal. This shows flight attendants you're aware of their presence and saves them from having to tap your shoulder or shout to get your attention. When ordering your drink, use hand signals alongside your verbal request. Point to the drink you want while saying it. This clear communication helps flight attendants serve you correctly the first time, especially on noisy flights where miscommunications are common. Now, let's talk about something that happens even before you board that could be putting you on the flight crew's watch list. The boarding zone jumper penalty. Attempting to board before your group is called doesn't just annoy the gate agents. It puts you on an internal watch list they share with the flight crew. Airlines have extensively studied boarding efficiency, with specific passenger groups called in a strategic sequence. When you jump the line, you're not just breaking an arbitrary rule, you're actively making the boarding process 15 to 20% slower for everyone. What you don't know: gate agents have a special code they enter into your passenger record when you attempt to board early. This flags you for additional scrutiny, often leading to random bag checks and reduced priority for upgrades or assistance with connections. Boarding hack. If you genuinely need to board early due to a connection or personal need, approach the gate agent privately before boarding begins and explain your situation. This respectful approach often results in accommodation without penalty. I'll soon reveal how your bathroom habits might be secretly judged, but first let's discuss how you're using your seat in ways that might get you blacklisted. The recline responsibility. The debate about whether to recline your seat has a definitive answer in the unwritten rulebook of air travel, and ignoring it makes you instantly recognizable as an inexperienced flyer. Contrary to popular belief, you do have the right to recline your seat. It's a feature, not a forbidden action. However, the unwritten rule that seasoned travelers follow is to always check behind you before reclining, and to do so slowly, giving the person behind you time to prepare. Flight attendants aren't supposed to take sides in recline disputes, but they secretly categorize passengers based on how they handle their seat. Those who recline suddenly without warning are flagged as potential problem passengers, requiring extra monitoring. Recline etiquette. Only recline after meal service is complete, never during mealtimes. always return your seat to the upright position during meal service, even if not explicitly asked. This courtesy is remembered by both crew and fellow passengers. The rules about when you're allowed to stand during a flight are much more complex than you realize. The Fasten Seatbelt Sign Flexibility. The Fasten Seatbelt sign is not as black and white as airlines officially claim. There's a complex unwritten code about when you can actually move around the cabin despite the illuminated sign. Flight crews understand that nature calls regardless of turbulence. The secret rule most people don't know: if the seatbelt sign has been on for more than 20 minutes and turbulence is mild, you're generally permitted to quickly use the restroom. But you must first make eye contact with a flight attendant and receive a nod of approval. What pilots reveal: the captain often keeps the seatbelt sign on as a liability precaution even when turbulence risk is minimal. Flight attendants know this and operate on a separate, unspoken scale of actual risk assessment. If you absolutely must use the restroom during the seatbelt sign, never just get up and go. Instead, press your call button, and when the flight attendant arrives, quietly explain your need. This proper procedure avoids making you appear defiant. Let's move on to one of the most contentious areas of the aircraft, the bathroom, where your behavior is being judged more than you realize. The bathroom timing protocol. The airplane bathroom isn't just governed by cleanliness expectations. There's a strict unwritten timing protocol that experienced travelers never violate. Flight attendants universally agree on these bathroom taboo periods: the first 20 minutes after takeoff, during active meal beverage service, and the final 30 minutes before landing. Using the lavatory during these critical windows brands you as an inconsiderate passenger. The inside rule from crew members: bathrooms are officially closed during taxi, takeoff, and landing, but the final approach announcement gives you approximately 10 to 15 minutes before you genuinely must be seated. When you hear flight attendants prepare for landing, that's your absolute final chance. Never leave your seat to join the bathroom line when someone else is already waiting. Return to your seat and try again later, or you'll create a crowded galley area that violates safety regulations and annoys the crew. What you do with your shoes reveals more about your flying experience than you might think. The footwear fundamentals. Going barefoot on an airplane isn't just a faux pas. It's a behavior that flight crews actively document and share with each other about problem passengers. The airplane floor harbors more bacteria than almost any public space, with tests showing contamination levels up to 100 times higher than the average shopping mall. Yet many passengers treat the aircraft cabin like their living room, walking barefoot to the bathroom without realizing the health risks. The industry secret: flight attendants keep a mental sock and shoe list of passengers who remove footwear completely. These passengers are less likely to receive proactive service and more likely to be scrutinized for other rule violations. Footwear rule: the acceptable compromise is to wear easy-to-remove slip-on shoes during flight. You can remove them in your seat area, but always put them back on before walking anywhere in the cabin, especially the bathroom. Your relationship with the flight attendant call button might be ruining your reputation in the sky. The call button etiquette. That call button above your seat has an entire unspoken protocol that frequent flyers understand implicitly. Using it incorrectly marks you as an air travel novice, or worse, a problem passenger. Contrary to what many believe, the call button isn't forbidden. It's designed for specific situations. The rule seasoned travelers follow. Only use it for genuine needs that can't wait for the next regular service pass. Medical issues, spills that could damage electronics, or safety concerns are appropriate reasons. What flight attendants say privately: they categorize passengers into button pushers and hand raisers. The former repeatedly use the call button for trivial requests, while the latter catch a flight attendant's eye and raise their hand slightly when needed, a method crews vastly prefer. If you need something non-urgent, wait for flight attendants to walk through the cabin after meal service. Make eye contact and give a small hand gesture. This approach is viewed as respectful of their workflow and typically results in better service. I'll soon reveal how your conversation volume is being secretly monitored, but first let's talk about a major violation at the end of flights. The deplaning patience principle. The moment the plane lands, a telling division appears between experienced and inexperienced travelers, and how you handle this moment speaks volumes about your flying etiquette. Standing up immediately when the plane touches down doesn't get you off any faster. It creates a safety hazard during taxi, blocks overhead bins for others, and brands you as an impatient novice. The unwritten rule is to remain seated until the aircraft comes to a complete stop and the seatbelt sign is turned off. Gate agents communicate with flight attendants about connecting flights. If you genuinely need to exit quickly for a connection, the crew already knows and will often announce which connecting flights should exit first. Jumping up unnecessarily makes you memorable for the wrong reasons. Deplaning strategy. If you're not in a rush, allowing those with tight connections to exit first earns you massive goodwill with both crew and fellow passengers. This courtesy is often remembered and reciprocated on future flights. Now for the revelation I promised, the most silently judged behavior that can get you immediately reported to the captain. The electronic compliance crisis. The single most despised passenger behavior, one that flight attendants immediately report to the captain, is refusing to comply with electronic device instructions during critical flight phases. When you ignore repeated requests to turn off devices or put them in airplane mode during takeoff and landing, you're not just being rude. You're committing a federal violation that can result in fines up to $35,000 and placement on no-fly lists. What you don't see: when a passenger refuses to comply with electronic device instructions after multiple requests, flight attendants use a specific code phrase when communicating with the cockpit. This triggers a report to ground authorities that often results in security meeting the flight upon arrival. Even if you believe device restrictions are unnecessary, the few minutes of compliance are worth avoiding potential legal consequences. Flight attendants don't make these rules, but they are legally required to enforce them. Fighting this battle makes you an instant problem passenger. There you have it. 10 unwritten rules of air travel that separate the novices from the pros. From overhead bin etiquette to electronic compliance, these invisible guidelines govern your reputation in the skies. Remember that final revelation about electronic devices? Flight attendants consistently rank this as their #1 frustration because it directly impacts their responsibility for cabin safety. When you challenge this rule, you're not fighting the system. You're making an individual crew member's job unnecessarily difficult, and they have more power over your travel experience than you realize. The air travel industry operates on a complex web of regulations and courtesies that most passengers never see. By understanding these unwritten rules, you're not just avoiding embarrassment, you're positioning yourself for smoother, more pleasant journeys with a crew that views you as a respectful traveler rather than a problem to manage. Drop a comment with your own air travel pet peeve or unwritten rule safe travels. And remember, in the skies, respect for the unwritten rules is your ticket to a better experience.